How many illegal criminals are you planning on exporting to El Salvador? And President Bukele, how many are you willing to take from the U.S.?
As many as possible. I'd like to go a step further. I mean, I said it to Pam. I don't know what the laws are. We always have to obey the laws.
You can take my ears, but you cannot take my liberty.
You'll have to be looking at the laws on that, Steve, okay?
Can he legally do that?
Of course not. What he's saying is we'll have a constitution-free zone. Yes, there are terrible criminals here, but that doesn't mean you can torture them, for example.
Both President Trump and the president of El Salvador just made clear during an Oval Office meeting that I was inside that they have no intention of returning that Maryland man who was mistakenly deported to El Salvador, despite a ruling from the Supreme Court in recent days that the United States must facilitate his return to the United States. Both President Trump and the president of El Salvador, President Bukele, faced questions on this in their first Oval Office sit-down. And White House officials and President Trump essentially argued it would be up to El Salvador if that man was returned to the United States, despite the admission by the Justice Department here in the United States that he was mistakenly deported because of an administrative error. I asked the El Salvadorian president, did he believe that he must be returned to the United States? And he argued it would be preposterous.
How can I return him to the United States? Like, I smuggle him into the United States, or what do I do? Of course, I'm not going to do it.
Mr. President, you said that if the Supreme Court said someone needed to be returned, that you would abide by that. You said that on Air Force One just a few days ago. And they said that it must be facilitated.
Why don't you just say, isn't it wonderful that we're keeping criminals out of our country? Why can't you just say that? Why do you go over and over? And that's why nobody watches you anymore. You know, you have no credibility.
So do you think that President Trump misjudged China when he said that they had gambled and made a huge mistake, and yet at the weekend it was Donald Trump who lifted the tariffs on mobile phones and computers coming into the country?
I think China's view is very clear. We will never tolerate anyone mistreating China like that, intimidating China, issuing ultimatum to China. If you slap me in the face, I slap you back. That is the tit for tat, and this is exactly what's happening. Now, Chinese government also declared by imposing 125% tariff against total U.S. export to China, the U.S. products have no marketability in the Chinese market, meaning they are ready to see an end to China-U.S. trade, to the China export to the United States, and vice versa. That is the ultimatum China is issuing to the United States. Don't mess with me. Otherwise, I close the market for you. You will be locked out of China.